Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music, and this video is going to be about one of the greatest progressive slash Canterbury bands of all time, and the band is Quiet Sun, and they were around from 1970 to 1971, and then they ended up recording an album in 1975 that was released on Island Records, and it's a true supergroup and just a stunning record. I think it's one of my favorite so-called prog albums of all time, and it lands somewhere between the Canterbury sound from groups like Soft Machine, and then some some influence of King Crimson to my ears. Although I'm sure that wasn't their intention, but for me it ranks right up there with a lot of the King Crimson albums, particularly the middle period King Crimson, or what used to be the middle period King Crimson with John Wetton. But anyway, Quiet Sun, for those who don't know, Phil Manzanera on guitar, Bill McCormick on bass, Dave Jarrett on keyboards, and Charles Hayward on drums. And Charles Hayward had just left the band High Tide. And a lot of people don't know that Charles Hayward, who ended up in This Heat and Fred Frist Massacre, was actually in one of the last incarnations of the original High Tide back in 1970, 1969, 1970. And that was a big surprise to me to find out that he played with that amazing band High Tide. Did a separate video on them, so one of the all-time legendary, incredible, unique bands of all time for sure. But Phil Manzanera, of course, left Quiet Sun and joined Roxy Music. He replaced Davey O. List, who used to be in the Nice, who was the original guitar player for Roxy Music. And Phil Manzanera, of course, joined the group before they recorded their first album. So we never did get to hear Roxy Music with Davey O. List. Bill McCormick left the original Quiet Sun, hooked up with Robert Wyatt in his brand new band Matching Mole after Robert Wyatt left Soft Machine. So quite a pedigree. And I guess in 1969 they actually were called Pooh and the Ostrich Feather, and then they changed their name to Quiet Sun. And the album came about because in 1975 Phil Manzanera took a break from the success of Roxy Music to record his first solo album, Diamond Head, and he decided to use some of the recording time and the opportunity to spend 2 weeks in the studio recording all the original Quiet Sun material from 1970 and 1971. So it would have been amazing to hear Quiet Sun back in 1970 or 71, and even more amazing if they had actually come out then. Fortunately, now we have the Quiet Sun Expanded Edition album that has a couple of the original demos from back then, so we do see that they definitely sounded the same back then as they ended up sounding in 1975. And so they recorded the album in 2 weeks, basically live with a few overdubs, and they brought in Bill McCormick's brother Ian McCormick and also Brian Eno, so that makes it even more of a super group. And they recorded the album Mainstream, and so needless to say the link will be below. And they did a short tour, and so I'm kind of surprised that no live recordings surfaced of Quiet Sun touring in 1975, because there was a lot of tapers around then, and it was kind of a legendary event. And then halfway through the tour, Phil Manzanera had to go back to Roxy Music, and they brought in Charles Bolan on guitar. And Charles Bolan, of course, ended up hooking up with Charles Hayward after the Quiet Sun tour was done, and formed the band This Heat, which I did a separate video on. This Heat is another amazing band. So all these bands associated with Quiet Sun are definitely very, very interesting bands. And then there was a bit of the Quiet Sun essence in the Phil Manzanera 801 Live. They ended up doing a couple of Quiet Sun songs on that tour, Wrong Wrong and Mummy Was an Asteroid, Daddy Was a Non-Stick Kitchen Utensil. And so Quiet Sun is basically part of that 801 Live experience. And so we've ended up getting a few other nuggets of Quiet Sun material, not only do we have the great expanded edition that comes in a book and has a lot of interesting notes. There's an interview with the members of the band talking about the band, and then there's also the demos of RFD and Trot. So I'll include those below in the links. Those are really cool to hear. And then also, Phil Manzanera did an album in 2008 called Firebird 7, and it has two updated versions of two old Quiet Sun tunes. Fortunately, I had one with me, and then Firebird, and I will attach those below as well because they definitely sound like Quiet Sun. They were done in 2008, but the material definitely links really well with the Quiet Sun record. And the thing that's cool about Quiet Sun, of course, is that they do have some affinity to Soft Machine with the bass, keyboards, and drums part of the band, but then you add Phil Manzanera and guitar, and it really changes the nature of the band. So imagine Soft Machine with Phil Manzanera sitting in, and it can approximate in some respects what Quiet Sun sounds like. Definitely a lot of really cool morphing material, a lot of improvisation, a lot of sections that isolate different instruments and highlight them, but definitely a collective effort, and really fits in nice with the Canterbury sound. Definitely a lot more aggressive. I think that's one of the things that makes me like Quiet Sun so much out of a lot of the Canterbury bands. They're definitely a little more aggressive than a lot of the Canterbury bands, and so there's some affinity between Quiet Sun and Matching Mole, for example. But Phil Manzanera's guitar is definitely very pronounced and definitely a lot more aggressive, and so that makes it a real delight for me. So for those of you out there who haven't heard Quiet Sun and you like that Canterbury sound, bands like Caravan and Soft Machine and the like, Quiet Sun is going to be a real treat. They're true giants, and I'm glad we got the album, particularly 4 years after they broke up. Would have been nice to have more material from them, but we're definitely blessed to have the Quiet Sun mainstream album, and now the expanded reissue is just icing on the cake. So there you have it. There's a pretty decent amount of material from Quiet Sun, considering they were only reunited for about 2 weeks and then the tour. But what a fantastic, incredible band, and as I said, easily one of my very favorite, if not my favorite, Canterbury band of all time, and certainly one of my favorite progressive bands. And the mainstream album is one of a kind, and a pure joy from beginning to end. One of the things I like about it too is that you have all these very capable musicians in it, and it's a collective effort. There's not a bunch of grandstanding or anything in it. It's definitely true ensemble improvisations. Man, there's enough enough themes to the actual tunes that you definitely feel like you're listening to music, and there's a cohesion to it, and you just really can't get better than a lineup like this, and then having Charles Hayward on drums, and then Brian Eno involved. A real stunner for all time. So links below, check it out. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching my channel.